The frigid winter wind bit through Ophelia Parrish's threadbare dress as she trudged along the muddy road, her golden hair whipping around her face. At 20 summers, her beauty remained unmarred by the hardships that had befallen her, the loss of her parents to the sweating sickness, her husband to the king's war, and their modest home to the greedy landlord. All that remained was her son, William, who clung to her hand with his small fingers, his innocent face looking up at her with trust that broke her heart anew each day. "Are we nearly there, Mother?" William asked, his breath visible in the cold air. "Soon, my love," Ophelia replied, though she had no certainty. The letter had arrived a fortnight ago, bearing news that an obscure great-uncle had died, leaving her a parcel of land on the outskirts of Thornwick village. She had never met this relative, and the unexpected inheritance had been her last hope after months of begging for work at taverns and manor houses. As they crested the hill, Ophelia stopped, her heart sinking. Below lay what must be her inheritance, a ramshackle cottage with half its thatch missing, surrounded by a sprawling patch of overgrown, barren earth. A small, murky pond lay to one side, choked with weeds and debris. This was no salvation. It was another cruel jest of fate. William tugged at her hand. "Is that our new home?" Ophelia forced a smile, unwilling to crush his enthusiasm. "Yes, my darling. It needs some care, but it shall be ours." As they approached, a scrawny dog with matted fur emerged from beneath the cottage's sagging porch. It growled tentatively, then wagged its tail, approaching William with cautious hope. "Look, Mother, a dog!" William exclaimed, delighted. "Be careful," Ophelia warned, but the dog was already licking William's hand, its loyalty apparently transferring to the new inhabitants of its master's property. William named the dog Rascal, and together they entered the cottage. Inside was little better than outside, dust-covered furniture, broken crockery, and the musty smell of abandonment. Yet it offered shelter, and for that, Ophelia was grudgingly grateful. A small wooden chest sat beside the hearth. Ophelia opened it to find a few personal effects, a tarnished pocket watch, some clothing moth-eaten beyond use, and at the bottom, a leather-bound journal. She set it aside to examine later, more concerned with making the place habitable before nightfall. That evening, with William asleep on the single mattress she had managed to clean, Ophelia sat by the meager fire and opened the journal. It belonged to her great-uncle, Everett Parrish, and began as a gardener's log, detailing plantings and harvests. But as she read deeper, the entries grew strange. "The soil here speaks to me," one entry read. "It hungers for more than common seed. The old Lord knew its power, which is why he gifted me this land when no one else would have it. What lies beneath must remain buried, yet it feeds what grows above in mysterious ways." Ophelia frowned, puzzled by these cryptic words. She flipped forward, finding a loose page tucked near the back. It was a crude map of the property, with the pond marked prominently and strange notations around its edges. The next morning, Ophelia surveyed her new possession with fresh eyes. The land, despite its neglected state, was extensive, nearly 3 acres. With spring approaching, perhaps she could grow enough food to sustain them and even sell at the village market. Days passed as Ophelia worked to clear the tangled overgrowth. William and Rascal became inseparable, the boy chattering endlessly to his canine companion as they explored the boundaries of their new home. Often, Ophelia would look up from her labors to find both of them by the pond, William throwing sticks into the water for Rascal to retrieve. One afternoon, as Ophelia turned over soil for planting, a shadow fell across her work. She looked up to see a tall, broad-shouldered man regarding her with intense gray eyes. "You must be Everett's niece," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "I am Nicholas Eldridge, steward of Thornwick Manor." Ophelia stood, acutely aware of her disheveled appearance, her blonde hair escaping its braid, her face smudged with dirt, her worn dress clinging to her slender figure. "I am Ophelia Parrish," she replied, lifting her chin with what dignity she could muster. "The manor lord, Sir Geoffrey, sends his condolences for your uncle's passing," Nicholas said, though his tone carried little sympathy. "He also wishes me to inquire if you intend to sell this plot. He would offer a fair price, more than fair, considering its condition." Ophelia hesitated. The money would provide immediate relief, yet something in Nicholas's too eager gaze made her wary. "I have only just arrived. I need time to consider my options." Nicholas nodded, though displeasure flickered across his handsome features. "Of course. But do not delay overlong. Sir Geoffrey is not accustomed to waiting." His eyes swept over the land, lingering on the pond. "Your uncle was an eccentric man, with strange ideas about this place. The villagers speak of it with superstition." "What sort of superstition?" Ophelia asked. "Nonsense, mostly. That the land was once part of an ancient sacred grove. That it holds secrets from the time before the abbey was built." Nicholas smiled thinly. "Peasant folklore. Nothing a sensible woman would heed." After he departed, Ophelia found William and Rascal by the pond again. The dog was pawing frantically at the earth along the water's edge. "He's been doing that all morning," William explained. "I think he is trying to dig for treasure." Ophelia ruffled her son's hair. "More likely hunting for moles, my love." That night, another visitor came, an elderly woman who introduced herself as Agnes, the village herbalist. "I tended to your uncle in his final days," she explained, presenting Ophelia with a basket of bread and dried herbs. "He spoke of you, though you had never met. Said his blood ran in your veins, and you would understand the garden as he did." Ophelia invited Agnes inside, grateful for both the gift and the company. Nicholas Eldridge visited today. He mentioned superstitions about this place. Agnes's face hardened. "The steward serves his master's interests, not truth. Your uncle was no madman, despite what they would have you believe." She leaned closer. "This land has memory, child. The old lord, Sir Geoffrey's grandfather, knew its worth, which is why he granted it to your uncle rather than selling it." "Its worth?" Ophelia echoed. "It seems worthless to me, save for the shelter it provides." "Appearances deceive," Agnes replied cryptically. "Watch your son and the dog. Children and animals sense what adults have forgotten how to see." The following days brought unexpected discoveries. As Ophelia cleared more land, she unearthed stones laid in precise patterns beneath the tangled weeds, the remnants of ancient garden beds. Following these lines, she began to see the skeleton of what once must have been a magnificent garden. William continued to spend hours with Rascal by the pond. One evening, he returned to the cottage soaking wet, eyes wide with excitement. "Mother, Rascal found something in the water. There is a stone path under the pond, but I could not see where it leads." Ophelia scolded him for entering the water alone, but his words nagged at her. That night, she revisited her uncle's journal, finding an entry that mentioned the pond. "The water guards the entrance," it read, "as it has since the old days when the monks sought to hide their greatest treasures from Henry's men. The Lord's Father showed me the way, entrusted me with its keeping. I have added my own protections, for in these troubled times, old secrets gain new hunters." The next morning, Ophelia stood at the pond's edge, studying its murky surface. Impulsively, she removed her shoes and waded in, feeling with her toes. Sure enough, smooth stones lined the bottom in a deliberate path. She followed it to the center, where her foot struck something solid, a large, flat stone unlike the others. She knelt, the water reaching her waist, and felt around the stone's edges. It moved slightly under her pressure. Heart racing, she pushed harder, and the stone slid aside, revealing a small cavity beneath. Inside lay an oilskin package, which she quickly retrieved before replacing the stone. Back on dry land, Ophelia unwrapped the package with trembling fingers. Inside was a smaller journal, its pages filled with precise diagrams of plants, many unfamiliar to her. Pressed between several pages were seeds, carefully labeled in her uncle's handwriting. Heart's remedy, fever's bane, pain's enemy. As spring progressed, Ophelia planted these mysterious seeds in the pattern indicated by the stone beds she had uncovered. To her amazement, they sprouted with unusual vigor, their leaves unlike any common garden plant. Nicholas Eldridge returned twice more, each time increasing Sir Geoffrey's offer for the land. Each time, Ophelia declined, growing increasingly curious about why the manor lord wanted this seemingly worthless plot so desperately. Her answer came unexpectedly. One night, as Ophelia worked by candlelight studying her uncle's journals, William burst into the cottage, clutching something in his small fist. "Mother, look what Rascal found." He opened his hand to reveal a small gold coin, tarnished but unmistakably valuable. Ophelia examined it closely, noting its age and unusual markings. "Where did you find this, William?" Rascal was digging by the big oak tree. "There is a hole under its roots." The next morning, Ophelia investigated. Sure enough, Rascal had excavated a sizable cavity beneath the ancient oak's massive roots. Kneeling, Ophelia reached inside and felt something solid, a small chest buried in the earth. With William's help, she extracted it and carried it to the cottage. The chest was locked, but a small key she had found among her uncle's possessions weeks earlier fit perfectly. Inside lay a trove of gold coins similar to the one William had discovered, along with a letter addressed to my heir. Ophelia read it with growing astonishment. The letter, written by her great-uncle, revealed that the land had once belonged to the abbey before King Henry's dissolution of the monasteries. The monks, forewarned of the coming seizures, had hidden their medicinal knowledge and wealth with trusted allies, including the old Lord of Thornwick, who had been secretly sympathetic to their cause. "The garden contains plants cultivated by the monks for centuries," the letter explained. "Rare medicinal herbs with properties unknown to modern physicians. The patterns of planting enhance their efficacy. The coins are your emergency fund, but the true wealth lies in the knowledge of these plants and their uses, which I have recorded in the waterproof journal. Sir Geoffrey seeks this land because his grandfather told tales of the miraculous cures that once came from this garden, though he knows not the specifics. Trust Agnes, she understands the old ways and can guide you." Ophelia sat back, stunned by the implications. The strange plants she had been nurturing were not merely garden herbs but rare medicinal specimens, preserved from the abbey's destruction. No wonder her garden had flourished with such vigor where nothing else would grow. The monks had selected this spot for its unique properties. That evening, as Ophelia contemplated her discovery, a commotion outside drew her attention. Through the window, she saw torches approaching, Sir Geoffrey himself, accompanied by Nicholas and several armed men. "Mistress Parrish," Sir Geoffrey called, his voice carrying across the yard. "I have come to make a final offer for your land. The price is generous, but my patience wears thin." Ophelia stepped outside, keeping William behind her. "My lord, I appreciate your interest, but this land is not for sale." Sir Geoffrey's face darkened. "You mistake my offer for a request. This plot rightfully belongs to Thornwick Manor. Your uncle was merely a caretaker, granted temporary use by my grandfather's misplaced generosity." "I have the deed, my lord," Ophelia replied steadily. "The land was gifted to my uncle in perpetuity and now passes to me." "Documents can be lost," Nicholas interjected smoothly. "Accidents befall isolated cottages. A widow and child alone face many dangers." Before Ophelia could respond, Agnes emerged from the shadows, several villagers behind her. "The lady is not alone," the old woman declared, "and threats against her will not be tolerated." Sir Geoffrey hesitated, clearly surprised by the villagers' presence. "This does not concern you, Agnes. It concerns all who have benefited from this garden's bounty over the years," Agnes replied. "Your grandfather understood its value and protected it. Shame you lack his wisdom." A tense silence followed. Finally, Sir Geoffrey sneered, "Keep your worthless plot then. But remember, I control the markets. No merchant will buy what you grow." After they departed, Agnes explained to the bewildered Ophelia that she had suspected Sir Geoffrey might resort to intimidation and had rallied villagers who had received healing from her uncle's plants over the years. "The garden's reputation is known throughout the region," Agnes said. "Your uncle prepared remedies that cured ailments physicians declared hopeless. Sir Geoffrey's own mother was saved by a tincture from these plants when consumption nearly claimed her life. He seeks not just land but control of these miraculous herbs." Over the following months, Ophelia's garden transformed from wasteland to wonder. Guided by her uncle's journals and Agnes's knowledge, she cultivated the ancient medicinal plants, learning their properties and preparations. Word spread of the remedies she created, drawing people from neighboring villages and even distant towns. Sir Geoffrey attempted to block her from selling at local markets, but the demand for her medicines grew so great that patients came directly to her garden. The gold coins remained hidden, a security she no longer desperately needed as her herbal remedies provided a comfortable living. As summer reached its height, the garden bloomed with spectacular colors and scents. William ran happily among the beds, Rascal at his heels, both healthy and thriving. The cottage had been repaired, the roof newly thatched, the interior made cozy with simple furnishings. One morning, a fine carriage arrived bearing an unexpected visitor, Lady Elizabeth, Sir Geoffrey's ailing wife. Against her husband's orders, she had come seeking help for a wasting illness that court physicians had failed to treat. "My husband's pride prevents him from acknowledging that his family has benefited from this garden for generations," she explained weakly. "But I cannot let pride lead me to an early grave." Ophelia prepared a treatment from her rarest plants, following a recipe in her uncle's journal specifically for the symptoms Lady Elizabeth described. Within weeks, the noblewoman's strength returned, her complexion regained its color, and her gratitude manifested in powerful protection. Lady Elizabeth convinced her husband to cease his campaign against Ophelia's land. More significantly, she introduced Ophelia to her brother, a physician to the royal court who recognized the scientific value of the ancient plant knowledge preserved in the garden. By autumn, Ophelia had established an arrangement with the Royal College of Physicians to document and study the medicinal properties of her plants. The agreement included protection of her land rights and a generous stipend for her expertise. On the first anniversary of their arrival at the inheritance that had seemed so worthless, Ophelia sat with William and Rascal on the cottage porch, surveying their transformed domain. The once barren wasteland now burst with life, organized beds of medicinal herbs, fruit trees beginning to establish themselves along the boundaries, and the pond, cleared of debris, reflecting the sunset in its calm surface. "Are we rich now, Mother?" William asked, leaning against her. Ophelia smiled, running her fingers through his hair. "We are wealthy in ways more valuable than gold, my love. We have a home, purpose, and knowledge that helps others." Rascal barked in apparent agreement, then raced off toward the oak tree where the adventure had begun. William laughed and followed, his childish joy the greatest treasure Ophelia could imagine. As twilight settled over her garden, Ophelia thought of her great-uncle's faith that she would understand the land's secrets. From apparent worthlessness, she had uncovered not just material wealth, but a legacy of healing knowledge that had survived centuries of suppression. In nurturing this garden, she had found her own renewal, transforming tragedy into triumph, desperation into purpose. The garden would continue to grow, its ancient wisdom flowing through new generations. And Ophelia, once a destitute widow with nothing but a seemingly worthless inheritance, had become the guardian of a treasure more precious than gold, the power to heal, to restore, to bring life from barrenness. As darkness fell, she lit a candle in the window of her cottage, a beacon of welcome for those seeking help and hope. The wasteland had yielded its secrets, and in its transformation, Ophelia had discovered her own strength, a legacy far more valuable than anything she could have imagined on that cold winter day when she first gazed upon her inheritance with despair. Her garden would continue to flourish, her knowledge would spread, and the ancient wisdom preserved through centuries of careful tending would never again be lost or forgotten. And that, Ophelia knew, was the true miracle that had emerged from the wasteland, not just plants that healed the body, but a legacy that could heal the world.